Right now, I'd like to invite our next guest speaker, Brother Reverend Rodney Gasaway, Second Vice President of Commonwealth Alliance Clergy Interfederalization. Please help me to welcome Reverend Rodney Gasaway.
Thank you, Imam Arif. Blessings, everyone, and greetings on this holiday of Al-Adha. Well, good morning. So, it is always a wonderful day when we get to come together with friends in fellowship and worship to God. So even though we may not all share the same faith, we do have a common interest, and that is serving our Creator. This makes us all part of God's community of faith. Now I want to start by first expressing my respect to the Islamic community on this holiday for the fasting, for the prayer, for the pilgrimage, for all of the steps of the pillar in which those who keep it regularly, for that is a true challenge in itself and deserves much respect by all in servitude to God. Now, as followers of God, we believe that everyone is beloved, shaped from the dust of the earth and from the breath of God. And if every one of us has a story to tell. Our stories are messy and beautiful. They're painful and they are hopeful. They are being written and rewritten again and again over time. And each of us has experienced different things in our lives that make each of our stories unique. See, we are at a unique point in history right now. As a society, after a long time apart, we long to communicate with one another. But my fear is we no longer respond like we used to. Now, Reverend Laura Wright Pittman shared a great example of this. She said, conversations that once were simple have now become like walking in a minefield. She says, I think we've lost the nuance and the complexity of our neighbors and even those that are close to us. We cling to labels, assumptions, and limited understandings, using them as materials to construct barriers and false, insufficient caricatures of one another. Now, I have a little example of this. Last week, a man approached me in the community, spouting religious and political rhetoric and telling me everything that was wrong with our country and who was responsible for it all. See, I have 3 decals on the window of my pickup, which those of you here can see it over there. I have a Navy emblem from which I served. I have a chaplain emblem with a cross, and a Veterans of Foreign Wars emblem in which I serve as a chaplain. Well, he decided automatically that he had identified me as someone who was in complete agreement with his viewpoints, even though I disagree with the majority of everything he had to say. See, he made assumptions and he immediately labeled me, using identifying emblems on my truck windows to construct a false caricature of who I am. Now, how many times has this happened to each of you? Maybe because of the way you dress, the color of your skin, a different accent, or because of a religious affiliation. See, if we continue to base our understandings of one another on preconceived and false pretenses, and refuse to openly and empathetically communicate with one another, the basic fabric of our common unity will continue to disintegrate. Brothers and sisters, I do not want us to get to a point where we are too afraid to openly express our own beliefs because of the fear of persecution. Now, over the last 8 years, Imam Huskik and I have worked together on missional activities across our community and have been working to foster respect and understanding between different faith communities. And in multiple ways, we are very different from one another. But what has brought us together and formed a solid relationship is our basis on our love of God, which has nurtured our relationship and allowed us to have multiple in-depth conversations with each other and opportunities to serve together in our community. Now, according to the Holy Bible, the prophet Abraham was not only asked to sacrifice one son, but in many ways two. One cast out into the desert wilderness, and the other on the altar. Now, due to Abraham's loyalty and devotion, both were saved and made into great nations. Now, if each of us were to live our lives with even half the devotion that Abraham showed, this would be a much better place to live. Live for God through His teachings, and you will find some common ground with your neighbor, even if you don't recognize it on the surface. Our holy texts teach us that we are to live with one another and have a willingness to be empathetic towards the stories and the experiences of one another. And we must learn to be inspired by one another, so that we can start discovering those common interests. I think and I believe that we will find that there is enough room for all of us in God's community of faith if we do so. Amen.